Update, update, update. Now you can get 10 free email issues when you sign up for email at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Discount codes, early access, exclusive content, the magazine, and access to the VIP page. Dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. All right. Awesome. Yeah. So welcome to the Dear Business Coach podcast. Susi Thomas, how are you today?
I am fine on this very trying to be nice sunny afternoon in England, in the southern part of England. Yeah, I'm very nice. Feeling a little bit festive, as you can see.
Yeah. Okay. So great. Yeah. I usually like to focus on the person, and here I'm looking at your background so I can check out the holiday stuff or the festivity stuff. I actually, have a lot of background about you, Susi, just from reading and looking at your bio. Of course, you and I met on LinkedIn, but I actually want to actually preface that I'm looking at some of your comments about your backstory, and I want to know what got you into wanting to talk to people in a business coach setting.
Okay. Um, the the change in the business world is probably the short answer, and the desperate need for psychological safety in the workplace. That is my passion. And where that is coming from is probably the moment that leadership changed for me, where I stopped performing being a leader and actually being a leader, is when overnight the world closed down during a pandemic, and I had 1,397 people look at me and ask me, now what? And nothing in my leadership curriculum at that point, which was 25 years in business in senior leadership, prepared me for the level of empathy that I was expected to display, how to deal with all of these people's emotions, fears, excitement because they didn't have to go to work for a couple of months, losses, etc., 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 and anxieties, and nothing had prepared me for that. And I just thought, oh my God, what am I even doing here? I'm good at numbers, I'm good at achieving profit, I'm good at doing my job, but I'm not good at being a leader. And that's what changed the game for me.
Update, update, update. Now you can get 10 free email issues when you sign up for email at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Discount codes, early access, exclusive content, the magazine, and access to the VIP page. Dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Wow. You just said you thought to yourself, I'm not good at being a leader.
The leadership changed for me. My definition of leadership changed for me. I was educated to be the old style leader, as I call it now, a leader who achieves result. I was always very result driven, even I joined a sports club at the age of 4. So my worth was always measured on an end result, whether that was achieving whatever I was in sports, whether it was achieving the nearly Olympics. And then I went into the business world, and then you were achieving results. So I didn't feel worthy as a leader unless I achieved results. And I lost the process in the middle. And what has changed in that moment is that Simon Sinek, really someone I look up to massively, said it perfectly. Leadership is not about being in charge. That's the old definition. Leadership is taking care of those in your charge. And that's what changed for me in that moment. And that's when I knew I needed to level up and lead differently. And that's what I think made me a better leader, got me into coaching, made me a better person altogether, to be honest.
Wow, that's a very great answer. And I was also thinking that might share a culmination of things as many of us do when thinking back on things, and you are able to point to yourself in a point in time when something actually changed right there for you. Now, of course, you just shared that there was a crisis and you were forced into that change process, but that could have gone so many different ways for you.
100%.
um you actually brought up something really fascinating. It's not surprising that leadership is results driven, or that is a form of thought or a school of thought. And why not, right? That is exactly what we think of when we think of getting into business or performing in business. You're right. We use measurements. We have to measure results. And I think when you said being in sports from a very, very early age, I thought, yes, this is a track, and this makes sense that you would be uh, someone who's successful if in a business world you're a leader, not just a team leader. You said over 1,300 people at this moment in time in the story that you just told us. And so as someone who talks to men and women in the business world all over the world, this is an international show, is that you find that women see that they're expected or favored upon in business if they come from a track that involves sports. Something like eight, something like 8% of lead women, CEOs or something of that caliber in leadership are women, and all of them basically, like the stats are like 96% of them played in organized sports. Now, you did not just play in organized sports. And so
No,
I want to get there, but I want to actually keep in mind this um, dichotomy of teamwork and competition, because in sports you're taught competition, but you're also taught teamwork, right? So at the one hand, on one hand, right, the team has to win. And so everybody working together to meet a result to win, and yet you have to you have to be a part of the team to make that happen. So this is interesting. When you get to be a leader of that magnitude, you it's not that you're not aware that there are humans on your team, right? You know this from being in a team, in a team. This is what you're taught to
yeah,
do, is be overly aware of where your team members are at all the time. What is your position on the team? And how do your roles work together? So to juxtapose that to no, it's still the results that are the end game here.
100%.
So that's confusing when I'm following you to a journey of where you are thinking, oh no, what do I do in this world of taking care of humans in the middle of results. So what I'm how did that work for you? I'm asking you this question because as we're getting to find out, you are an Olympic athlete. So you are
Nearly
the right
Olympic
person to
athlete.
ask this question, right? Was that something that you thought about, wrestled with? Wait a minute, this is my team, and we're supposed to win.
The sports that I did was this the track and field, I think you guys call it. So I did discus throwing, and we had a weird dynamic from a sports point of view because obviously I was in a team of people that were training together, but in the ring, we were individuals. So as soon as we stepped on a competitive ground, we were competitors. We're no longer friends. So it was a very strange dynamic. But to be honest, we see that in business all the time, don't we? It's a team, it's a team, it's a team. And then when it comes to either promotions or being leveled up, all of a sudden you go from team members or colleagues to competitors. So that so that is the yeah, so that's the sort of parallel to the sport. Um, I think what was missing, and even as an athlete, what was missing for me is the empathy. Because as an athlete, I was there to I was there to win competitions, medals. I was there to represent my club, my country, etc., etc. So, and I remember very vividly as a child when I was upset about something or I wanted to cry, I did not dare to cry because I would get penalized for that crying. That was seen as a weakness. So now, if we fast forward that to many, many, many years later in business, are we not still in the same now, at the same point now? And I think to your point about so many women in senior leadership being coming from the sports background is because two things. We get a level of resilience taught to us that gets us to those higher spots. And sometimes we have to work harder than some of the men.
Hmm.
Um, and it's that resilience that we get taught as athletes, the determination, the tenacity, the keep going. When you get knocked down, you just dust yourself off and learn from your mistakes. I think that's what gets women into senior leadership or gives them those tools to be successful in those environments. Um, but also, what I found, we can get lost. We as individuals, we have to play this mask of being this resilient, strong woman that i.e. Susie got lost. Susie was lost for a good 15 years. And it took, again, throughout the pandemic, going through all this, supporting all these people, that someone asked me once, Susie, when did you last experience pure, unapologetic joy? And I had nothing. I literally could not remember. And that was when I knew I needed to look at myself first as a leader. So, and become emotional intelligent and look at that self-awareness, the self-reflection. Then I can display empathy because it makes me understand people. And then I can nurture a relationship. And those relationships is what brings the results at the end of the day. That will save millions and millions of pounds in your P&Ls because your
Hmm.
your people are not going to leave you because the biggest human need we have as humans is love and connection. And if we can tick that box in business, and we have to tick that with vulnerability and empathy, guess what? People will stay. You get out of this hamster wheel of recruitment that costs you millions and millions and millions of pounds. It's the easiest way to save, to increase your business margins. That is,
What?
so I don't know if that answered your question. I hope it did.
Yeah. Well, so I don't always um, ask a question to get that answer, as you might know.
Okay.
Yes, you did. I want to say that, yeah, I have a sales background, and when you were talking about when you and your team are in the ring, now it's time to compete, even though we are working toward a goal for your country or your division or what have you. But I actually found, it isn't that interesting that you have to train for yourself and you have to beat yourself and compete against yourself, and you're part of the team. So yes, you have to learn how to compete against the people, your own team too. So I found that in sales, right? We all bind together for a common goal, and yet, yeah, we have to compete against one another too. And I think you said you, as women, or at least in your experience, this is my experience too, so I'm
Yeah.
speaking for myself too. My mom used to say to me, "You are so strong." And she just was observing, and she's making an opinionated observation. We have different personality styles, and that's the way she saw me.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I think, well, that was so amazing of her to talk to me that way. And yet I do carry a lot of, it's not a burden, but I do think to myself a lot, but you're strong. You should be able to handle XYZ because you're strong. And sometimes that's a problem.
Yeah.
So tell me about what, okay, so Susie, I need to know, you're an Olympic athlete. So tell me about getting to the Olympics. What is your journey there? That's actually in and of itself something I need to know about.
Okay. So I need to correct you slightly. I'm a
Okay.
nearly Olympic athlete.
Okay.
Okay. So, like I said, I come from East Germany, so that's a whole different story in itself. Um, I joined the sports club at the age of 4, and at the age of 12, I was scouted by an Olympic college. So I trained with Olympic athletes like Petra Felker, Heike Trexler, who were both Olympic gold medalists. So, and I did that from the age of 12 and a half to the age of 19. And just before I finished, what finished my sporting career, I had a few issues with my back in the last year. And one week I got a letter from the Olympic Committee in East Germany and to say, um, yeah, you've been selected for the Olympics 2000 in Sydney. Congratulations, you're in the training camp. This is, we'll get in touch with you about training programs, etc., etc. And the next week, I'm literally sitting in a doctor's office, still holding the letter in one hand and looking at my parents and the coaches of either side of me, listening to the doctor give me a choice that said, you either stop sports right now and can lead a fairly normal life, or you can make the Paralympics. Yeah, not really a choice. So
Mm.
that moment was probably the first real moment in my life where I had a real identity crash. I was like, sports was my life. I didn't really know what else who I was without sports. So it took me quite a few years to find my mojo again, to discover what I wanted to do and how to come away from that. And again, no one really knew how to support me in that. So again, going back to that empathy for me is living in someone's world for 5 minutes without any of your filters. And that's quite hard. Can be
Wow.
can be quite hard. So if anyone would have lived in my world at that point, they would have seen that I was utterly lost, devastated. It was just a big black hole, quite frankly. And but my parents didn't understand that, so decided they sent me to my grandparents to train off because as if you do sports to that level, you can't just stop one day to another because your body will do all sorts of crazy stuff. So I got given a train off schedule, which I got sent with to my grandparents, and I was then chased up and down the hill by my granddad on his bike to try
Mm.
and train off whilst my parents went on a 3-week holiday. And that created a lot of baggage, as you can imagine, or as you said earlier, stuff. And that you then spend your lifetime trying to process. So yeah, nearly Olympic athlete, but it's what it's given me is all those years as an athlete is a level of resilience, a level of tenacity that I do believe are my superpowers. So yeah.
Well, that's one thing that I don't know if a lot of us are very good at is admitting, yeah, that's a superpower, right? I think some people some people pay a lot of good money to get down to what is my superpower.
Yeah. And it's probably taken me Susie 5 years ago would have been very workaholic, the queen of people pleasing. Like I said, all my worth was measured in an end result. If the end result wasn't right, I was not. I considered myself to be a complete failure. And the journey I've made through the last 5 years, from that point I talked about earlier to now being that empowerment leadership coach, is just learning that level of self-awareness with curiosity rather than judgment. That's a shift for me. That if something doesn't go right, to try and figure out why it's not going right, or what is triggering in me, and why is that triggering? Where is it coming from? Basically, really getting to know me again. So, like I said, Susie was lost. When I was asked that question in 2021 about joy, I had nothing. I couldn't even tell you what joy was at that point. And my world was very black and white. As well as now, I feel like I've discovered this world of color, which, you know, is crazy and full of possibilities and opportunities. And but Susie, in the old Susie or before Susie, was very black and white. You're either a winner or a loser. My coach used to say to me from the age of 12 all the way up to 19 on a daily basis, you're either the first or the first loser.
Ew. I mean, I know I've heard versions of that before. I'm
But
sorry, I didn't
I
mean to
was
say
this
ew.
this was literally like drilled into me on a daily training basis multiple times. And I wasn't aware that I was still carrying that probably till about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, how could you
But
not?
yeah, how could I not? But I wasn't like consciously aware of that. Now I am aware of it. Now I know when it shows up. Now I can do something about it. Whereas beforehand I didn't.
I think you said curiosity versus judgment, and I was going to ask you, do you mean when you're speaking with somebody else and or yourself? And then you answered it, and I believe you meant for yourself, curiosity
100%.
versus judgment. That's interesting. I think that maybe I think about that too. Sometimes I think about a thought that's coming through for me, and I would like to be curious about where that's coming from. I don't know how to turn off the judgment right afterwards, maybe because I feel like uh, I have to perform some sort of analysis, and that's where it starts to get fuzzy for me. Where do I continue to use that curiosity in a productive way?
Uh, Probably try and when you ask yourself that curious question the first time before the judgment can set in, is ask yourself the question, when was the first time I've had that feeling? When was the first time I felt whatever you were feeling at that point? And that will take you back to a story of your childhood, most likely. Most of us form these beliefs and stories from the age of 0 to 7. So that will take you to somewhere in your childhood. It will bring up some sort of picture or memory or something. And then just stay with that memory, stay with that story, explore, and then you will find a point where the trigger happens, and then and then you can actively steer against it. And the judgment doesn't even, you'll be too busy exploring for the judgment to come in.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that does sound good. Okay, so what about getting out of your teen years, and what was happening there for you, say 17, 18? Was there a time there as someone who's training as going looking at at the Olympics, what do you think was happening? What were you planning for? You said, I imagine that even at the age of 12 there was a decision there, and now here you are towards that to going toward to 19, still training. So what are you planning to do at 19?
I spent probably a whole year of in complete uncertainty, and it felt a bit like a maze, if anything. Also, combined with the war, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I lived in Berlin, so I was in Berlin when the wall came down, um, which was not only was I in total chaos, the whole country was in total chaos. Everything I knew was in total chaos. Everything I believed in was in total chaos. Um, so and then my parents, obviously, their borders opened up. My English was quite frankly worse than the pigeons' English. So I was sent over to England to learn English, and then met my now husband, and that got me motivated to learn English. And a year later, I found myself in England, moving to England for that fresh start with a baby in my belly, maybe as the extra bonus. Um, so at that point, sports has always been in my head, but it was, you're a mom or you're becoming a mom, you need to do something else. You need to take care of this baby, you need to set up your new life, you need to establish that. So that took a couple of years. And then I saw an advert for McDonald's, and I knew McDonald's opening near me, and then wanted an admin assistant. I was like, how hard can it be to shove some papers around the place? So I applied, and my manager at the time who hired me, very not which was not a popular opinion at that point, I must add, because my English was terrible. I'd never done admin work, and everyone thought he was completely crazy. But he said to me, from the word go, I knew you were ruthlessly efficient. I'm not sure whether that's a compliment. And I could just feel that level of passion and tenacity on you. And that's what I wanted. That's what I knew. I'm very bad at admin. I'm very bad at organization. I needed someone to help me with that. So he gave me a chance, and then got me into this world of, hospitality, and a company that was very well known for their looking after their people and furthering their people. And I've always believed that, or I was told that the company will give me what I want as long as I do 50% of the work. And after I shoved papers around for about a year, that was no longer a challenge for me. And if it's not challenging, again, it's the old athlete in me always looking for the next challenge. And I said to him, okay, what else can I do? And he goes, oh, I just go up the ranks. So within 2 years, I was then a restaurant manager. Within 5 years, I was a supervisor. So I was a supervisor in restaurants. And yeah, and then 28 years later, yeah, I'm looking after 8 restaurants, 1,397 people, 8 restaurant management teams, working for a franchise McDonald's business. Yeah, and again, it took a lot of tenacity and resilience to be in that very male dominated world, very male dominated world. But yeah, and the first time I heard the word this was really baffling for me. The first time I heard the word emotional intelligence in my leadership training was 26 years into my leadership journey. I mean, enough said. To me, that just says everything. And once I got it was during a course that was called Being a Trusted Business Partner. That's when we got taught this
Mm.
the trust model and emotional intelligence, all the components to that. And I was just like, why now I understand why I sometimes think I'm such a good leader. I'm so people oriented, always people led, but it's not landing the other side. There's always felt like it wasn't landing with the people the way I wanted it to land with the people. And I never understood why. And once I had that training and understood it, and I was, I was had enough courage to be vulnerable to open myself up to that. I understood why it wasn't landing with the other people, and I led differently. That so it was landing with the other people, and then we worked together synergetically as a team to get to the end result, to work on the processes to get to the end result, and that's what got the pennies in the bank, if you like.
Well, so what do you mean by like how do you personally, Susie, determine, oh, it's not landing with my team?
You know when you hold a meeting, so it's just like let's say a meeting, and you put a lot of effort into delivering messages that obviously come from above that are normally KPI focused, right? Because
Hmm.
you're the one in the middle, you're that squished tuna sandwich filling between your people and the KPIs.
Hmm.
And I put all this work in to try and get really get them to learn, and they were still really not connecting with that. It wasn't. I could see on their faces, their body language told me more than anything that they walked out of that meeting still not really understanding how is the how they're meant to achieve those results. Because I don't know about you, but I hear people say all the time, "Oh, if they just do this, then." And
Yes.
I personally have banished the word just in my of my vocabulary, because if it would be that easy, why don't we all just do it?
Yes.
What people need to be taught is the how to do something, so they can then walk away and do it.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, to answer your question is I could sense from their reactions, from their body language that they still didn't quite get the how. And I was really at times really quite frustrated why my intentions weren't landing the way they're meant to be landing. But once I saw it through their eyes, through their empathetic eye, once I got out of my head for a minute, out of my pressure that I was under, out of my filters and my story, and I lived in the other person's, spend the time to live in their world to really understand how it was landing through their filters, that's when they got the how. But it took, yeah, it just takes a little bit more time and patience and willingness and vulnerability, all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, you are looking for something that is that you've decided you want to see, that you want to experience. I'm looking for some kind of data from my team that shows that we're making a connection and that what I am offering is something that is useful or lands. That's the word that we
Yeah,
use. I like that, and I'm not, I can see myself having this expectation or hope that that my message will land with my team and leaving that meeting thinking, I don't know what happened. And just figuring out how to even measure that or change that for yourself sounds, is that why I need you to help me look at that?
100%. Because to have empathy, it comes back to this judgment thing, you know. Um, the people I was leading, most of them were of a different generation to me, so there's a generational difference. Um, so just that alone, means they've got different needs, they've got different ways they perceive things. And a lot of, I think the biggest problem we have in the business world right now is that the people in the head offices are expecting the people on the ground to change to their way of thinking. When actually people on the ground, they're then tomorrow's leaders. It should be the other way around. The upstairs people need to think about how the people on the ground are thinking, and then they can change things effectively. So what I do in my webinars is just get people to get out of their heads. I do it in a very playful way. I'm very Susie, as you can see around me. Nothing is very corporate. The corporate stuff has given me the ick. I've spent too many years in it's too many years in ick. I've discovered the world of color. Now I'm all colorful a little bit, but it's a disruptive way of disrupting normal thinking patterns. So it has got a method to my madness. I
Mhm.
get people a little bit. I use what I call my vibe framework. So I use physiology because if we change our bodies, we can change our minds. I choose focus. If we My therapist once said to me, um, we have got equal amounts of positive and negative thoughts in our heads. It's just what we choose to spotlight.
Mhm.
And that's your choice, that's your accountability. So getting people to take on that accountability, teaching them that, and also then being we are leaders, we have responsibilities. We have got a very powerful tool that's called words and language. So if you go back to the words of my coach, and the words he used to me on a multiple, and how that is, he sitting at home on a sofa or wherever he is these days, thinking, oh my God, I shouldn't have said these words to Susie. She's carrying them around with her for 35 years. Well, absolutely not, but I am carrying them. So
Mhm.
even a dropped comment, even a comment under your breath could be very damaging to that individual. And just being aware of that changes you as a leader, changes the impact you have, changes the inspiration you have on your team, changes how they feel about you, changes trust. And then guess what? They will walk through fire for you. And if they walk through fire for you, they will stay, no matter if they get offered a job that pays more, because the feeling of belonging is way more powerful than any paycheck.
Yes it is. No, you're right. I think you have awareness, and yes, your words matter. And that's life is different for people who understand the impact of their words, I think. And I think I'm too sensitive sometimes, and maybe I have just become uh maybe I'm paying attention to words a lot more. But I think, I want to know how to get into one of your webinars.
So I do a lot of webinars on LinkedIn. So whenever, just check it out on LinkedIn. I have got a monthly newsletter. I call it Inspire HQ newsletter on LinkedIn. So where I will give you those little leadership hacks that will make you that impactful leader. Like that teacher you had at school, you remember, for all
Yeah.
the for all the right reasons, not the bad reasons. But were they the best teacher in the world? Maybe not, but they were probably the best listener, the person who saw you, the person who really heard you. So I'm trying to do with the newsletter little ways of getting people to um yeah, just teach them that gentle self-awareness in a gentle way. Like I said, um how else can you work with me? I have got a very low cost. I'm all about low cost and high impact because
Mm.
um so I've got a membership called the Hero Collective because I want people to create heroes. So people who can live their own story, write their own story without anybody else scribbling all over their page. And I want to develop or help develop leaders, the leaders they wish they had. So I do that through the Hero Collective. So that's a monthly membership, and we have a monthly hero call. Um, we'll have a monthly hero call on the 30th of December at 7:30 p.m. in the evening. It'll be 90 minutes of just looking at next year. And I always use like a triad. So the triad we use for this month or this upcoming month is, hey, honoring, um, establishing, and yeah, just celebrating yourself, that next chapter, which starts obviously next year. So, and if someone is brave enough to really spend 90 days looking in the mirror and working on that physiology, the language, and the focus, they can do my hero program. So, and all of that is on my website.
Okay, so basically, that's awesome. So I start with LinkedIn and I can get to your website. You
Yeah,
have a monthly membership, the Hero Collective, and your webinars are available on LinkedIn. So that's actually a huge amount of low cost, free to low cost, and
100%.
accessible detail right now. So if I connect with you on LinkedIn, and what is the best way to talk to you? Can I DM you? Can I
Always
respond to
comment.
you? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Always just comment on my posts. I try and post about 3 times a week on LinkedIn. And again, my posts are not, I hate being salesy, can't stand it. Will never best salesman. So that probably is different. You come from sales, don't you? Sales give me the biggest ick. Um so all I kind of my posts are very like situational, I suppose. It's very much lives in what lives in my head at the time. And probably doesn't mean it has a massive amount of strategy there, but it's full of heart and tries to make I want people to get to know me from my posts. So if you want to connect with me, respond to the post or subscribe to the newsletter, check out the Hero Collective. My email address is on the website as well. Yeah, just yeah, check it out. And if it resonates or not, when it resonates, um, when you
Yes.
want to get out of that people pleasing, yeah, just on LinkedIn, I also put there's a freebie on there. I call it the ACT checklist, and that's basically a fun little tools of bingo style card of how people can get out of people pleasing. Little tips and tricks they can do on a daily basis. Little challenges like I will only do, I will only honor one favor a week. Well, if you only honor one favor a week, you have to be extremely exclusive about that favor. So it really gets you out of that. You start pausing, prioritizing, protecting your peace. So there's a little there on LinkedIn on the resources. There is the ACT checklist, and that just means people join my email list and then get to know more of me.
Okay, so I am subscribed. Inspire HQ Leadership Hacks for Courage, Empathy, and Boundaries. Your people will feel inspired, not drained. I thought, okay, so what you just said there is so if I dive into your resources, then I can look at your exercises and what you said there's quite a few, and you just said that one of them is to I'm only available to do one feed for a week.
That is one little tip.
Okay, so so I'll stop with that. I'm laughing because I have so many comments around that, and so I'm looking at your newsletter is Inspire. It's Susi Thomas. Your handle is linkedin.com /in/ Susi Thomas, SUSI hyphen Thomas, and the Yeah, view my newsletter is the hyperlink on your LinkedIn profile, so I can click right on that. And also, yes, commenting on your posts is a fantastic way. I like to remind people that when you are on LinkedIn and you comment on somebody else's post, that looks good on you because other people see
100%.
that. Okay.
100%.
Well, I am so glad that we talked and
Thank
thank you
you.
for jumping on. And I'd like to talk again. So, I hope you have a fantastic holiday. Susie Thomas, thank you for coming to the Dear Business Coach podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. All right. Talk to you next time. Thank
Talk
you.
to you then.
You've been listening to the Dear Business Coach podcast. My name's Elizabeth Walker, producer and host. Don't forget to subscribe to email. Thank you so much for being here, and find one thing today to move your business forward. Contact me at dearbusinesscoachpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, you are a superstar.